The road less traveled, but ultimately the most rewarding in life, is the never-ending quest for wisdom. Certain things are like seeds we plant in silence, far from prying eyes, so they can develop and flourish without intervention. This is where the wisdom of the Stoics enters the picture. They teach us to guard and cultivate within ourselves without feeling compelled to show it to the outside world. Great thinkers throughout history have understood that not everything is meant to be shared. They have valued their secrets, accomplishments, and lessons because they know that if they share too much of the true meaning of things, they risk losing them. Every joy, every sadness, every lesson learned, every challenge faced, all of these are bits and pieces of the story. In a world that loves to display everything, it can sometimes be difficult to recognize and appreciate what's behind our accomplishments. In this video, we will discuss 11 topics that we recommend you keep to yourself. All of them are important, so watch to the end to find out why. Just as a flower doesn't grow if it is constantly touched, our growth also needs privacy, a space of our own where we look at our mistakes and victories and decide how we want to move forward in the best way. Instead of talking about your one accomplishment, consider plunging into the deep, dark waters of your own psyche. For the Stoics, the quest for wisdom and virtue was like this profound journey. They felt that the only way to find true fulfillment was to engage in introspection and constant evolution. By sharing their victories, they gave us a chance to reflect deeply on how ego and vanity, when fostered, can become obstacles that stand in the way of true virtue. Their fixation with receiving external recognition, they claimed, ties us to chains of pride and traps us in the meaningless pursuit of fleeting applause, which is a path filled with disappointment. Nevertheless, here is a priceless lesson from the Stoics. For these ancient sages, true achievement isn't the one stopped to be admired, but rather the one that quietly transforms the community, nurturing noble values like justice, compassion, and wisdom. Wealth wasn't accumulated in vaults, but rather in the depths of a balance and serenity soul. Instead of celebrating victories or withering in defeat, they embraced a quiet acceptance of all life's whims. They invited us to recognize that the dance of existence is orchestrated by melodies frequently beyond our control. In this remarkable silence, we find a deliberate choice, a commitment to genuine greatness. They believe that true majesty lies in living with integrity, dedicating oneself to the collective. The Stoics advise not to speak about challenges, because they believe that ego and pride can cloud our perception, making us blind to true virtue. 2. Don't talk about challenges, because not to overcome in the Stoic path to wisdom and virtue, every step was filled with meaning. The deviations and stumbling blocks weren't mere obstacles. They carved the soul-shaped character and taught about the true nature of grandeur. It wasn't the visible triumph that counted, but the internal battles often invisible that determined a person's inner strength. But if these struggles held so much value, why did the Stoics advise not to speak about challenges? Indeed, the unrelenting quest of approval and recognition from others may serve as a curtain to conceal our actual potential. The Stoics sought true glory in deeds that elevated humanity, deeds rooted in values like justice, generosity, and wisdom. For them, true wealth wasn't in the shine of gold, but rather in the radiance of morally upright character and a tranquil soul. The philosophy of loving fate was, important to this understanding are the following. 3. Don't talk about your good deeds. Picture a candle that silently lights up a dark room. Its light is gentle and unobtrusive, but it warms and illuminates everything around it. The Stoics did not give up in the face of adversity. Rather, they balanced the taste of victory and defeat with equanimity. For the Stoics, kindness was like this flame. They felt that genuine generosity should be a quiet, sincere act, performed out of the desire to do good without expecting recognition or a reward, rather than being shouted from the top of a mountain or public square. Why might this viewpoint seem odd in today's culture of self-promotion? because Stoics understand the risk of making kindness into a show. If we boast about all of our good deeds, we might unintentionally seek the transient warmth of praise. Keeping our good deeds under wraps gives us a sacred moment of reflection and pause, a moment of intimate connection with ourselves, where we can ask whether our actions were sincere or driven by other interests. At the core of Stoic philosophy is the idea that genuine kindness doesn't seek attention. Rather, it shows itself in quiet, genuine acts of compassion. This hidden self-analysis becomes a catalyst for personal improvement. This timeless wisdom envelops us in its essence and serves as a constant reminder of a fundamental truth. Most of the time, the greatest acts of kindness are those that are given freely, without anticipating anything in return. Don't discuss your 4 resentments. Have you ever been caught in an emotional web where each strand represents a painful memory? The timeless wisdom of Stoicism invites us to consider the unseen weight of resentment. According to these ancient philosophers, holding on to resentment was like an anchor that hindered the spirit from traveling freely through the seasons of life. However, what if we could choose a less traveled path where forgiveness and understanding were our devoted companions? Behind this historical perspective, we find an unwavering focus on virtue and self-control. Have you ever carried a burden on your back for an extended period of time? Have you felt the fatigue, exhaustion, and resentment that comes with it? Chain that restricts our freedom and inner serenity. It's amazing to see that resentment frequently originates from miscommunication and can trap us in a vicious loop of resentment. Since anger and resentment are poisons, the Stoics urged us to look for the reasons behind other people's actions before passing judgment. In this way, forgiveness is not only an act of altruism, but also a profound act of wisdom that unlocks the mysteries of the human soul and sets us free from the bonds of negativity. On the other hand, by choosing the path of forgiveness and understanding, we find an oasis of serenity and calm. Flames that, when fed, consume our peacefulness and well-being. Stoic wisdom serves as a reminder that forgiveness is the key to our own freedom, and that this is a universal reality. It is a lighthouse that offers us safety in the port of serenity and leads us through emotional storms. Accepting this lesson teaches us that sometimes the greatest power is found in letting go, breaking free from the bonds of the past, and moving forward toward a future filled with peace and understanding. 5. Keep your most profound dreams to yourself. For a brief minute, picture yourself holding a rare and delicate seed in your palm. It symbolizes your deepest aspirations, your greatest aspirations. Self-sufficiency is celebrated as an invaluable gem. True wisdom, true accomplishment is not a chalice to be displayed, but an internal well from which one can always draw. It makes no sense to seek fleeting external approval when we can find richness and purpose in the recesses of our own minds. The Stoics, with their profound wisdom, provide an answer. They saw our goals and dreams as these precious seeds destined to be planted in the fertile depths of our souls, far from the storms of others' opinions and criticisms. After all, who hasn't felt the flame of a dream extinguish prematurely when exposed to the cold of skepticism or the heat of ridicule? The Stoics understand the fine line between healthy ambition, from hubris, probably the quietest and yet most eloquent of virtues, choosing. Being silent about our lofty objectives was not a sign of timidity, but rather a conscious decision to walk in humility and resist the pride that occasionally blinds at the conclusion. The Stoic legacy speaks to the heart. It's not necessary to shout our dreams from the top of the mountains. Instead, we should nurture them, protect them, and watch them grow in their silent and majestic glory. This safeguard is an invitation to rediscover our inner strength and to realize that sometimes the treasures we treasure the most are the ones we keep to ourselves. Don't discuss your next steps, please. The path of the Stoics was inspired by the image of a chess master moving their pieces silently while their opponents try to figure out what they will do next. They realized that by disclosing every move they made in their lives, they could open themselves up to the whimsical winds of criticism, envy, and even malicious intent. The virtue of self-sufficiency is at the core of Stoic philosophy. After all, why rely on the fleeting applause of an audience when true strength lies in the inner theater of the mind? By keeping their life strategies to themselves, the Stoics were not only hiding their plans, but strengthening their inner core of confidence, independent of the tides of opinion that flow around them. This brings us to humility, a subtle yet profound quality that the Stoics fervently upheld. By choosing discretion, they struck a balance between ambition and humility, ensuring that their steps were steady but not presumptuous. As a result, the Stoic tradition offers us a rich perspective. The Stoics invite us to look inward, find our internal compass, and tread our own path with confidence and wisdom. It teaches us that protecting our goals is more than just a strategy. It is a way to fortify our being, to honor our self-sufficiency, and to walk with humility in a world where external validation seems to be the currency. Don't discuss your doubts and uncertainties with anyone. Imagine yourself in a large forest where every tree stands for uncertainty and every shadow for doubt. Rather than voicing your doubts to the outside world, the Stoics choose to engage in deep reflection, searching within themselves for answers. The fundamental tenet of Stoic philosophy is the understanding that confidence isn't something to flaunt in public. Nonetheless, an internal beacon that directs us. When we openly display our uncertainties to the public, it's like exposing a lighthouse to torrential rain. It can silently go out. Instead, we find the stability required to remain, unaffected by other people's ideas and assessments. In summary, Stoic wisdom. While many seek answers in the din of the outside world, recognize the value of silence and introspection, and believe that often the answers to the most profound questions resonate in the quiet chambers of the heart and mind. By harboring certain uncertainties, you can cultivate deeper reflection and a more intimate connection with your essence. In turn, modesty is not just an external virtue, but a shield that protects the spirit. Therefore, always choose when and with whom you will share your vulnerabilities. With stillness, you can embrace the wise counsel that whispers through the storms of uncertainty. You don't have to shout your doubts to the world. With humility and reflection, we manage to navigate a secure path through the maze of uncertainties. The Stoics understood that passing judgment on others was a diversion from their own internal mirror, wasting precious energy on matters beyond their sphere of influence. Instead of pointing fingers, the Stoics chose to extend a hand. They guided themselves with empathy and compassion, realizing that every person is a universe filled with internal and external battles. This is the power of silent self-reflection, and the internal confidence that the Stoics leave to us. 8 Don't talk about 8 others. Joys and sorrows, wins and losses, successes and setbacks. Critiquing someone else would be a failure to recognize the depth and complexity of the human condition. They also understand that criticism, rather than Stoic wisdom, provides us a clear and timeless message. We must be guardians of our words and thoughts. Building bridges frequently created walls in its pursuit for quiet and harmony. In this way, they knew that harsh words and hasty judgments did not lead to peace, but rather discord and isolation. In a world where criticism is easily leveled, let's shift our attention from the shortcomings of others to our own introspection in search of virtue and growth. Contrary to popular belief, the Stoics found strength in quietude. They did not view solitude as a void to be filled, but rather as a sanctuary where the mind could dance freely, free from the shackles of others' opinions. The Stoics did not shun solitude, rather embraced it in their moments of retreat. They did not feel isolated but connected to a rich inner universe full of insights. We find a space where our soul can breathe, and it is in this deep silence that we discover the melody of our essence, a sound that doesn't need to be shared but only felt in its purity and truth. 10:10. Don't talk about unlearned lessons. Few things are as universal as mistakes. It was in this stillness that the deepest thoughts arose, unpolluted by external noise. In the current landscape where validation through social media has become a priority for many, we all make mistakes and fail, but for the Stoics, it's how someone responds to these setbacks that really reveals their character. These were times of revelation and development, rather than despair. In today's society, a lot of us experience pressure to reject an ideal of perfection. We tend to highlight our successes and conceal our failures, but the Stoics model a different way of living. The Stoics shielded themselves for a deep and intimate process of reflection, viewing each failure as a new chapter rather than an end in the never-ending quest for virtue and wisdom. They also chose to keep their unlearned lessons private. Accept mistakes not as a sign of weakness, but as a map for self-development. In a time where oversharing and overexposure are frequent, the Stoic position reminds us of the significance of contemplation and the dignity of silence. Just as an artist turns a mistake into an important aspect of their work, the Stoics transformed their mistakes into foundations for progress. Don't discuss your most private plans with 1111. One of your strongest tools is realizing that you don't have to announce your plans to everyone. The Stoics saw something that many of us overlook. Prudence is not a sign of weakness, but rather power on their behalf. In the age of overexposure, when every move is recorded and shared, every plan or goal was like a delicate seed that needed to be nurtured with care and protection. By preventing these plans from being prematurely exposed, they made sure they had the perfect environment to grow and flourish away from the storms of doubt, envy, or public scrutiny. In the midst of the chaos of our modern era, perhaps we can find inspiration in these ancient sages by protecting our deepest plans and allowing them to develop at their own pace, free from interference. By doing this, we may discover the true magic not in what we declare to the world, but in what we quietly achieve in the recesses of our determination. Stoic philosophy invites us to rethink how we handle our ambitions. It shows us that true power often resides in what is kept secret.